Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of Everyday Educate podcast. I'm joined with Nicole. How's it going?
Good. How are you today?
Good, good, doing well. Got a lot of work done. I'm excited to chat with you. Where are you based?
So I am currently in Mesa, Arizona, so a suburb of Phoenix.
Nice, amazing, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure. We just connected a while back on Instagram and some other social channels, and we were just chatting. Got to know each other a little. Maybe a little background about yourself and what you do would be helpful for our audience.
Sure, sure. I always say I was born to be a teacher. I taught my stuffed animals, as a kid, and I forced my sister to sit down and listen to anything I could teach her at any time. And so teaching was just always in my DNA. I think I was meant to be that teacher. So I went to ASU, Arizona State University, to pursue a special education degree. And when I was there, I was approached to be an Avid tutor. And so Avid, for those that don't know, is a amazing program where we take general education students and put them in honors level classes and really try to help them to be successful. We do tutorials twice a week on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and we group them up and we work on the different assignments that they're working on. They really learn from each other through inquiry and different things like that. And I was there to kind of like be like, no, do this step first, do that step second, and then they could really grow from there. And that helped me a lot as I transitioned then into special ed and started teaching special ed. In 2009, I graduated and got my degree, and I taught at a high school in Scottsdale. And through co-teaching and resource classes weren't a thing. So through co-teaching, I realized that there were a lot of needs for resource level programming, which means like pull the kids out of general ed, really work on those foundational math skills that they might not have because they weren't really able to solidly grow in math with a rocky foundation. So we did that in Scottsdale and it was super successful. And then I flew over to Mesa, where I am at now. And I taught resource math there for a little bit before I got the bug of going into admin and leadership. And so I started as a what they call special ed site leader. It's kind of like a glorified department chair. And then that's when I could really help other teachers teach in special ed. And my big thing is I think anybody can learn. And I really am like, set the bar high. Let's get everybody else to that bar. And then you'll never know where kids will go from there. They always like are just like rocket ships. They just take off. And so I was in Mesa for a little bit doing that, and then I went over to Gilbert, and then I was able to support junior highs and high schools with special ed until COVID hit. And then I had to come home and, be with my kids and really focus on their skills. But in the meantime, through COVID, I started supporting families as a special ed advocate and really helping bridge what school lingo and school language, especially regarding special ed, and then what families know or don't know about it, and really trying to bridge that communication between what does this acronym mean? What are my rights? What if I don't agree with something? And I can I always say I'm kind of like a security blanket for a family to say, like, yeah, that sounds good. Or I'll pipe up and say, like, no, I don't think we agree with that, and it's really has been really successful, I think, to challenge some of the teams and really see, like, I think he can grow or I think she can grow, and not just capping their learning, really keep bumping that bar up. I think I shared with you before that I was a volleyball coach. So I think that's my coaching, like competitive mentality is I really want to see kids get up here and then grow from there. So it's super fun. And then now I'm doing general ed math intervention to help kids better prepare for the state assessments that we take. And I started with the big group of kids and started narrowing it down. Do you just have test anxiety? Are you or do you really need some extra help in math? And it's really kind of like almost like math counseling, where I sit there and I say, like, what is it? What's so scary about math? Maybe it's the letters. Okay, let's take the letter out and put a circle there. Does that change anything? And then if we clearly just describe, like, this is how you solve the problem. Step one, step two, step three. Once you follow those steps, you got it. I'm really seeing some good success. So I can't wait to see how they test. And I think the more we talk about it, we might desensitize them to like the stressfulness of it. And then we'll see. I'm really just excited. It was the first year that this school has implemented an actual math interventionist. They've tried online tutoring and excuse me, and like skill builder classes where it's kind of like resource programming. But if you have a math anxiety, taking 2 hours of math each day makes it miserable to come to school. So the way I see it is I let the kids eat their chips. I let the kids listen to their music. And as long as they're comfortable, then I'm comfortable, because then I can kind of get at them and be like, all right, now we're going to round. Now you can listen to your music. Now you're going to divide, and now you can listen to your music, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's fascinating, and there's so many tangents that I want to take it to, but I'll go back to this. So your focus has been on math,
Mm-hmm.
and I recall, if I recall correctly, taking that general math education and also applying it to special ed children. And so with the general kids, it's kind of like counseling them and tutoring them. I like how you call math counseling. I've never heard
Yep.
that before. So kind of helping them to elevate to that bar. But then does that same curriculum also apply to the special ed children as well? And how does that
Yes.
how do you see that work?
Yeah, so that's what I think was always such a shock to people in special ed, because they always, I hate to say they always, or some people always feel that, oh, they just can't do that. That's too hard for them. They can't do that. But I disagree with that statement, because the way I see it, we all are general ed kids first before we're special ed kids. The special ed is just like the extra descriptor for them, or a way to support their needs. So all special ed children are held to the same standards, regardless of the disability or things like that. Now, there are kids that have lower cognitive abilities, and so then they are able to take their own alternate assessments. So that's like a different. Then you operate on alternate standards for kids of lower cognitive abilities. Um, but for anybody with like a learning disability or an emotional disability, for the most part, they are able, or they are, or should be able to get to general ed standards. And so what's really, I think, fun about the concept is you can look at a standard and you can really see what's the meat and potatoes of that standard, and really figure out, okay, in order to solve a quadratic equation, you need to be able to multiply, you need to be able to look at your order of operations, for example. So then you build on those skills. So you get them rocking at their multiplication, you get them building at their order of operations, and then you can get them to that quadratic equation eventually. And it's not so scary, because you've chunked it down to the point where they're so confident with multiplying, then they're so confident with order of operations, and then they're so confident with a square root that boom, we now have done quadratic equation without even thinking about it.
Interesting. Yeah, that's very fascinating. And outside of testing, um, what's a good measure that you see that kids have learned a specific concept, like the building blocks you mentioned, rounding, you mentioned square roots, order of operations. Like if I know we've come across children with dyslexia. I have friends currently with dyslexia. Everyone's brain is a little different, but how how do they prove that they've learned that specific base knowledge so that you can keep adding more layers to it? Is there maybe it is testing, but is there something that they demonstrate and they say, have that aha moment and then say, okay, I get this. Like, you have those experiences?
Yeah. So the nice part about education now, from what I've noticed, is education is very cross curricular. So you might do, for example, there's a ton of reading in math. So if you struggle with reading, then math is a struggle for you. Doesn't mean math is the struggle for you, but reading the story problem to pick out the important information then becomes an issue, right? Where we see the math applied a lot is in science classes. So if a student is very successful in science, whoa, what are they working on in science that they can do the math without realizing they're doing math? Interesting, right? Because a lot of it, I keep going back to, is math anxiety. They've built up this like block that I will not do letters in math, and that is English. And why am I doing solving for X? And why do I care what X is? And things like that. So unfortunately, the way the world works is testing is what shows us mastery. But everyday concepts, when they're doing homework, when they're doing classwork, when they're in science class, applying a skill that they don't even realize that they really have learned, it's really interesting to kind of see, how they kind of cross over with each other. And I'm not a big fan of using one test to say whether somebody's been successful or not, but it really is about how comfortable they are at persevering through the concept, whatever that might be. I mean, it's a math standard in Arizona is perseverance, because you got to look at a problem and be like, okay, I might not know this, but I'm going to try everything I can do to solve it, because there's 45 different ways to possibly solve a different problem. Doesn't mean you have to do step 1, 2, and 3, but some kids, it's so abstract that you need to narrow it down and give them step 1, 2, 3. And then it's like, oh, well, that wasn't so hard, you know?
Yeah, that's very interesting. For my own curiosity, and I've been out of school, especially for standardized testings for 12 years now, so I haven't even gone back to that. At what grades do standardized testings apply? So is it eighth grade and then 12th grade currently?
So they change it all the time, and Arizona might be different than where you guys are at in California. It could be different than Florida. So when I was teaching, when I first started teaching, we were taking what's called AIMS, and that was sophomore year of high school. Then we went to a different testing measure. I think it was then AZ Merit. And in AZ Merit, it was at the end of every course. So if you took algebra, you took it at the end. Geometry, you took it at the end. Algebra 2, you took it at the end. Now, this year, um, I'm at a junior high. So this year, eighth graders take a science measurement. Seventh and eighth grade do a reading measurement, a writing measurement, a math measurement. And then it looks like this year it was decided that juniors in school will take the ACT, which is kind of cool because you're now talking about a college entrance type test. And so you're giving more kids the opportunity to explore university level that may not have thought, they were capable, especially for my special ed kids, to take the ACT and then score well. It's like, maybe you should give your shot at a university. Lots of our kids will go to junior college or community college first and then transition to a university, which is great for 1,000 different reasons, mostly money, but for smaller class sizes, more personalized learning experience. But a lot of the reason that a lot of special ed kids didn't transition straight to a four-year university was because of the SAT or the ACT. And so now you take that anxiety completely out by just having them do the ACT as part of their normal school day. Everybody else is taking it too. The only drawback to it in my eyes is it's math and science based. And so if you struggle or you have anxieties about math, then you will look at this test like, whoa, this is such a daunting thing. But at the same time, if we keep doing what we're supposed to do in our younger grades, by the time they get to that junior level, and if it stays ACT, then our kids are going to be able to rock it because science education has taken off with more hands-on learning opportunities, not so much pencil paper and the Charlie Brown teacher womp womping at you anymore. You're blowing up things and you're plugging things in to see what's going to happen if I charge this like little piece of electric battery onto, aluminum foil. Like they just do so many cool things. My son, I can use him as an example. Terrible grades, unfortunately, in every subject, but he has an A in science.
Mhm. Yeah, that's
It,
been fascinating. I've always been kind of confused in going back in my school career, not having the educational like background, but uh, going back like trying to see why am I learning something that doesn't interest me, made it feel like a drag. But then finding something that is of passion, just like lights the fuel, and it makes you keep going.
for
Um,
sure.
do you come across students like that um, just are apathetic towards a subject and then light up somewhere else? And then obviously when it comes to testing and standards, um, everyone kind of has to be at a certain par. But how do you deal with students that don't like a specific subject, um, and it
I
feels
think I can
forced?
empathize with them, right? Because we all had subjects in school. I was not a big fan of reading. So when I had to help kids that struggle with reading, it's like, guys, I don't want to do it either. But you know what? This is a big life skill that we're going to need to be able to read contracts when we're older. And we're going to need to be able, I really try to pull in the real world element to whatever it is that I'm working with them on. Because, for example, Pythagorean theorems, solving for sides of a triangle, right? They're never, unless you're a carpenter or unless you're going to build houses or be some sort of engineer, when are you ever going to use this, right? So that's the question you get all the time from kids. When am I ever going to need this? And
Yeah.
I say, for the next year, right? Or you say for college or whatever the excuse is. But in real life, we do math every day without noticing it, right? You go to QT and you're buying a 44 Dr. Pepper, you want to make sure you're getting the right change back. If you don't know how to do math and they give you the wrong change back, well, then you're out. Like you're done, right?
Yeah,
So
100%. And do you think a lot of that, maybe even with children from starting in elementary to middle school, that they uh, have a lot of that math incorporated in the games that they play, video games that they play? Um,
I think Minecraft is really kind of helping. I know I see my son, he could ramble off all these different characters and things that he's learning just from Minecraft. And I know that a lot of people are like, don't do the screen time and things like that. But there are different skills, like even what Animal Crossing, you have to save money to go buy your bells or get people to come to your island. I'm not going to act like I'm an expert on those things, but I hear my kids complaining about those things all the time. Those are kind of still good real life skills for them to learn. Or the fact that they all want these V-Buck cards. Like, what's the point of paying for something for your video game? Well, here's why, mom, blah, 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 blah. And they can tell me all their reasons. So in my house, kids have to do a proposal if they want something. Because that's real life, right? If I want something from my boss, I have to do a PowerPoint. I have to talk to them about what's going to cost them, what they're going to get out of it. So same at my house. My daughter wanted a hamster. Well, you do a proposal for a hamster and I'll consider your request, right? So you have to look up how much is the cage? How much is the feed? How often do you need to change things? So it's going to cost us how much for a whole year to take care of this hamster. Now you're going to need to call a vet and find out what happens if my hamster's sick. How much does that cost? We're going to need to budget these things. She's 9. So
love
it's
it.
perfect for her to, I call it learn through living. Like she needs to learn while she's living, right? I taught at high school, I taught math and I taught what's called personal finance, which I think is the most important class that I think any kid could take in high school. We did taxes. We played I called it for the love of LeMay, or the game of LeMay, the game of life, essentially, right? So every Friday they would pull a slip of paper out of a hat, and sometimes they were positives and sometimes they were negatives. Like, oh, surprise, your car battery died. Now you're going to have to go to AutoZone and buy a new car battery. Look up how much the car battery is and write a check to Miss LeMay for that much money. And then I would say, like, here's your new car battery. Now you can drive to work. But sometimes it was like, it was your birthday. Your grandma gave you $50. Like, so there were positives and negatives. Same with us, right? In real life, you walk out, your car doesn't start. Guess what? Game of life hits you. You have to go find your new car battery, you know?
Yeah, that's so interesting. My brain is just firing on all cylinders, trying to take this in, and I appreciate you kind of breaking this down through your experiences. Um,
Yeah.
Kind of switching gears, what would you say is the mission of your life in education? Like, what's the goal um, for your life in education?
I just want to help kids feel safe and successful and know that there's always someone there to support them. No matter what the struggle, what the risk is that they're taking, I want them to be safe because they need to be able to feel safe in order to grow. Because if they're safe, they can come to you and say, I just failed this math test. I don't know what I'm going to do. And then I say, it's all right. We got it. We're going to sit here and we're going to study for it. I mean, I have kids right now in my classroom that are all the way in accelerated math, and the teachers can't really understand why accelerated math kids are coming in. Well, I was that accelerated math kid, and I was at home drowning. There wasn't online tutors and things like that when I was in school. I just wanted to talk to someone and hear, you're on the right track, you're not on the right track, you know, you're hot, you're cold, you know, that kind of thing. These guys want their hundreds. And if they get a 96, they're upset with themselves, right? They want to get that 100. So they're going to take the test again and they're going to show you, I got this, I'm going to master it. So those kids are in there trying to learn, like, I got this question wrong. Why did I get it wrong? How can I not get it wrong in the future? So it's like, okay, let's break it down. It's just probability. Read it. What does it say? You know, that kind of thing.
I love that. Yeah. So good, so good. Okay, kind of next question that I have, and kind of thinking about uh, kids going from elementary to junior high to high school. Like for me, each transition was like kind of daunting, or like, okay, what's next? It
Mm-hmm.
was kind of exciting, kind of nerve-wracking. But um, what would you say to each student making that transition? Um, what do they need? And I guess for the last point, so obviously after 12th grade, it's like I feel like real life begins. We
Mm-hmm.
still have education, we go to college, university. I feel like real life kind of, there's no more testing. It's like, okay, you're on your own. So uh, for kids going from first to 12th grade, what would be your foundational lessons, that maybe 3 to 5 things that they have to have in order to be successful in post 12th grade? I know it's kind of loaded. There's 12 years in that mix, but maybe some foundational things that you've come across.
I would say the biggest thing is don't be afraid to ask for help. There are so many different options and resources available, and they just keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. If you're struggling, just ask someone for help. And if they're not the person, find out who it is that you ask for help. Because even if a kindergartner can ask for help, even as an adult, if we can turn to a peer or turn to our boss and have the skill to ask for help and not be afraid of what happens because we've asked for help. I mean, can you imagine the things that people would accomplish if you just set pride aside and say, I need help on this one. Sometimes two perspectives are better than one on so many different things. So going from elementary school to junior high to high school, same, asking for help. You go to college and you don't know what to do, at least show up to the counselor's office and say, I need help. I don't know what to do, because they might know of thousands of different opportunities that you can go to get that help.
Yeah, that's a good point. And even personally now, that's something that I struggle with. Is I always think, okay, let me get done whatever that's on my plate. I'll figure it out, and I have a good way of individualizing it and getting it done.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess to follow up on that, how do we know if um, who to or either who or how to ask for that help? Like,
Yeah.
what if some of the kids don't know, or we don't know what we need help with? It's kind of like a fog, or we're stuck in our way of doing things, and it's never gonna change. Like, obviously, I know there's like tutoring and counseling, and you've mentioned
Mm-hmm.
some of this, but what's kind of that introspective process, if there is one, to say, okay, I'm stuck on this. I do need help. Who do I go to for this help? Is it my teacher? Is it the counselor? Is it, how do we kind of determine that?
Yeah. So I think that's where like self advocacy is such a big skill set that we don't realize. Like a lot of us learned that self advocacy by watching others or from our parents, or they might teach a lesson on it at school, but that's something in special ed we really kind of work with students on within the realm of self advocacy. So it is about like you go to your trusted adult, or if you don't know who to turn to. I mean, I would always say teacher is the number one. And then if the teacher doesn't know, they're going to tap in, who else? As a grown up, right? I oversaw teachers. If they asked for help, it would just show me as their boss, like, wow, this person wants to do well for this kid, and they're really like hitting every end pass that they can, but they're just not quite getting over that hump. So the ability to ask your boss, the you know there's always someone that you can go to, that you can say, I don't know where to go, or I don't even know what the issue is. Even just saying, I'm like, I'm so underwater right now that I don't even know what my issue is. And then really go to that one person, whoever that is, the teacher, your parent, an aunt, an uncle, someone, and then they can give you another perspective of try this direction, try this direction. It's just such a big skill to be able to say, I'm feeling that pitter patter in my chest. It's not a good pitter patter. And I need to do something about this because that's not how I feel good. When we're on a roller coaster, that's a different feeling, right? That pitter patter. But then when you're sitting writing an email or working on an assignment or doing a project or driving somewhere and you're lost, like pull over and you ask for help, like that's just what we need to learn to do. We need to learn that it's okay to ask for help, and someone will be out there. There's someone like you and me that's out there that we can tag, and we say, we got this. We're going to help you through it. And if we don't know, we're going to work on it together and find that right road for you to take.
Yeah, that's so good. And I think that applies across all ages, like
Yeah.
even myself, in the real world. I think more so students that might not know the exact path, like what they need to do in schools to keep advancing. So, and I think personally, looking back, there was always this pressure, especially in high schools, like, okay, well, what are you going to study now? Or, oh, have you decided your major? Have you just, and it was like from all angles. And I was still undecided until 12th grade at the end. I was like, okay, I guess I'll do accounting, something like that. But
Yeah,
yeah,
but even
fascinating.
even that is like we can always reinvent ourselves in the
Yes.
world we live in now. I was lucky. I always say I was lucky. I knew exactly what I wanted to do. I knew I was going to knock it out of the park because I have, it's a blessing and a curse, my passion. I love what I do, and I dive in head first, and I do a big old cannonball as soon as I get into that pool, no matter what the temperature of the water is, no matter what it is, right? I dive right in. But it's okay because even I can go and reinvent myself. Like if I'm tired of this path, I can go and find a new path if I want to. Like that's the beauty of of America and our world that we live in right now, we can find a need or a new passion or a new niche. Like if I want to go start a dog rescue, I could do that. I love dogs. I can learn. I love learning. So I'll go start a dog rescue. You know what I mean? Like there are so many different avenues, and kids in special ed too, when they get to high school, well, when they turn 16, you have to have a transition plan in place for them. So it's all about like, where are you going to go next? How are we going to prepare you for that? And it does help some kids, like getting them thinking about what they want to do. But there are so many people, like you can ask my friends, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're 35. It's like, what do you want to be when you grow up? And like, I'm not sure yet. I really don't know. And that's okay, because as long as you're a productive member of society and you're happy with the place that you're in, then that's okay. You can work at a grocery store and still make great money and have zero pressure. Like there are some people that are just not meant to do high stress jobs. And we need people like that in our world. Like we are so short-handed in schools, as like with paraprofessionals and things like that. You need a high school diploma and to care about people. That's it. You know what I mean? You could show up and you could do a great job. You don't need to have a bachelor's or a master's to do that, but do you care about someone? Then you can do that. You can help them get from point A to point B, then we got you.
Yeah, that's really deep and really insightful. I think I can go on for hours about this, and maybe in future conversations, I'd love to discuss again. Maybe even have other people on um,
Yeah,
to pick specific topics and go deeper into it. Because I think, um, yeah, I think you're right. It's, just from some of the conversations, we don't want to force things that we don't like as students on ourselves, but go into things that we excel in. Maybe find where our strengths are to hone those, and the weaknesses. Sure, if we're testing, those are important too to learn them, but doesn't necessarily mean we have to have a career in that or love that deeply. So there's so
for
much
sure.
value and wisdom there. But maybe for future discussions, I'd love to continue.
Yeah.
But, as we wrap this up, maybe if people have further questions and just want to connect with you, something that stuck out, how can they connect with you? Where can they find you?
So I live on my email, and so anybody can email me at any time, any questions. I'm happy to, be of help. I love helping solve problems. So anything I can help with, I would love to at least help point you in the right direction, right? Of that safe or trusted person. My email is simple: ed advocate Nicole. So EDADVOCATENICOLE at gmail.com. So
Awesome, sweet. Well, I'll leave that in the description below,
great.
and put some ways for you guys to connect with Nicole. Thank you so much for taking your time and joining. I love this conversation. Hopefully, we can do it sometime later and continue and keep going deeper into some of this stuff.
Yeah, my pleasure. I'd love to.
Awesome. All right, we'll chat soon. Bye.
Bye.